My name is Vreth-Sonn, a researcher from the Galactic Observation Bureau, stationed above a planet the locals call Earth. My job is simple. Watch. Record. Do not interfere. And under absolutely no circumstances, get emotionally invested. I have been breaking that last rule since day one. Today, however, I witnessed something that made me nearly spill my entire observation flask of heated mineral broth across my console. And trust me, that broth is irreplaceable out here. Let me set the scene for you. The forest was thick, the kind of thick where sunlight had apparently given up trying to push through the canopy and just surrendered. Green everywhere. Mud. The smell of wet bark and something that had probably died nearby and was very much still announcing that fact. The human locals call this place the Harrow Woods. My colleagues call it a biodiversity-rich observation zone. I call it the place where common sense goes to retire early. Now, somewhere in the middle of all this beautiful, ridiculous wilderness, there was an orc. Her name, according to our records, was Morda. She stood roughly 2.5 meters tall, with skin the color of dark pine bark, and arms that looked like they had been carved out of a mountain by someone who was, frankly, over-enthusiastic. She wore worn leather straps across her chest, a torn fabric wrap around her midsection, and the general expression of a creature who had endured a great deal and was not interested in enduring more. Walking beside her, barely reaching her hip, was her son. Grub. That is what she called him. Grub. I have cross-referenced this against 17 different cultural databases and I still do not know if it is a term of endearment or just an honest assessment of his size. He was 7, maybe 8 years old, with wide golden eyes and cheeks that still carried that particular roundness that makes even hardened field researchers briefly forget their professionalism and say things like, "Oh, that is a small creature and I feel concern for it." I felt concern for it. Morda and Grub were walking the ridge trail, heading back toward the orc settlement of Durek Hollow, which sits in a valley about 4 kilometers south. Morda had a sack of root vegetables slung over her shoulder. Grub had a stick. He was hitting things with it. Trees, rocks, one particularly unfortunate mushroom. Children, regardless of species, are deeply committed to hitting things with sticks. Across the galaxy. Every time. I have 17 pages of notes on this phenomenon alone. Then the boar appeared. And not just any boar. This was a harrow tusker. These animals are roughly the size of a small ground vehicle, possess approximately zero fear, and have been documented charging at things purely out of what can only be described as personal grievance. The tusks on this particular one were old, yellowed, and curved upward like it had been planning this moment for years and had really taken the time to make sure it looked the part. It came out of the tree line at full speed. Grub dropped his stick. Morda dropped the vegetables. And then, without a single moment of hesitation, without a breath, without even the faint pause of self-preservation that most living beings possess as a basic survival mechanism, Morda stepped directly between the charging boar and her son. She spread her arms wide. She planted her feet into the mud. She made herself as large as possible, which was already, objectively, very large. She screamed at that boar in the old orc tongue, something that my translation unit rendered as roughly, "Not today, not him, not while I breathe." The boar did not slow down. This was not a bluff. This was not a theatrical display. Morda was fully prepared to take that impact with her body. She was going to get hurt, possibly badly, possibly critically, and she had made the calculation in under a second and the answer she arrived at was, worth it. I was leaning forward in my observation pod. My mineral broth was completely forgotten. Every one of my secondary eyes was locked on that forest floor. The boar was 30 meters away. Then 20. Then 10. And then, from somewhere up on the ridge to the east, a crack of sound split the air. Sharp. Precise. The unmistakable report of a human projectile firearm. The boar veered. Hard. It stumbled sideways, crashing into the undergrowth, rolling twice, and then going still in a way that left absolutely no ambiguity about its current status. Silence swallowed the forest. Morda was still standing. Arms still out. Chest heaving. Grub pressed against her back with both fists gripping her leather strap, face buried between her shoulder blades. And then a voice called out from the ridge. "You all right down there?" The voice came from above. Morda spun around with the speed of someone who had just survived one threat and was absolutely not in the mood to process a second one. Her hands were raised, her teeth were out, and the sound that came from her chest was something my audio recorder later described as low-frequency vocalization, threat category, severity high. I would describe it more simply as the kind of sound that makes your entire body want to apologize. A human was picking his way down the ridge slope, rifle slung across his back, hands raised in the universal gesture that means, please do not do whatever you are currently thinking about doing. His name, according to our ground-level data tags, was Barro Finn. 43 years old. Licensed hunter. Resident of a small logging town called Crestmere, about 12 kilometers north. He had a thick beard, a coat that had seen better decades, and the particular kind of calm that belongs exclusively to people who have been in enough bad situations that new ones no longer fully register as emergencies. He stopped about 15 meters from Morda. Smart distance. He had clearly done the math. "That boar was going to take you apart," he said, still with his hands up, voice steady, conversational, like he was discussing weather. "No offense." Morda stared at him. Then she looked at the boar. Then back at him. Grub was still attached to her back like a very small, very terrified barnacle. "You fired," she said. Her common tongue was rough but functional. Like gravel being poured into a wooden bowl. "I did," Barro confirmed. "Why?" It was not a question. It was more of an accusation delivered in the shape of a question. "I have studied orc speech patterns for 3 years and I want to be clear, that single word carried roughly the weight of a full trial." Barro blinked. He lowered his hands slowly. He looked at the boy behind Morda. Then back at Morda. Then he said, with genuinely no performance in it whatsoever, "Because you were standing in the way and he was going to hit you." Silence. Grub peeked out from behind his mother's back. One golden eye visible. One tiny fist still gripping leather. He looked at the dead boar. He looked at the human. He looked at the dead boar again, as if confirming it was still dead and had not made any decisions to the contrary. Then he looked up at his mother and said, in orc, "He helped." Morda did not answer. Barro did not move. I was recording everything at maximum resolution and had already flagged this interaction for the Senior Research Archive under the category of First Contact Adjacent, Emotionally Significant, Do Not Summarize, Watch the Whole Thing. What happened next is the part that I have replayed 47 times since returning to my station. Not because it was dramatic. Not because weapons were drawn or ancient oaths were spoken or the sky cracked open with symbolic lightning. It was quiet. That is what made it extraordinary. Morda reached into the mud at her feet. She picked up one of the root vegetables that had fallen when she dropped her sack. A large one, dark red, the kind the orc settlements use in their long-cooked stews. She walked forward, 3 steps, and she held it out to Barro Finn. Barro looked at the vegetable. He looked at Morda. He looked at the vegetable again. "That is a parsnip," he said. "It is payment," Morda said. "For what?" "You know for what." Now, here is the thing about orc gift culture that most outsiders completely misunderstand. When an orc offers you something after you have done something for them, they are not paying you off. They are not being polite. They are establishing a bond. A thread between 2 names. By accepting that vegetable, Barro Finn would, by orc tradition, be agreeing that the debt was acknowledged, that the act was real, and that the 2 of them now existed in the same story. Barro did not know any of this. He reached out and took the parsnip. "Thank you," he said. Grub made a sound from behind Morda. A small sound. Brief. But my audio unit caught it and my translation matrix processed it in under a second. It was the orc word for good. Just that. Good. Barro slung his rifle more comfortably on his shoulder. He looked at the boar. He looked back at Morda. "You need help getting that back to wherever you are going? That is a lot of meat to carry alone." Morda regarded him for a long moment, the way you regard something that surprises you and you are not yet sure whether to be annoyed by the surprise or accept it. "You are strange," she told him. "Been told that," Barro agreed. She picked up her sack. She jerked her head toward the south trail. Barro Finn, a human from a logging town, fell into step beside an orc mother and her son, carrying a dead boar between them through the Harrow woods, and none of the three of them said another word for the next 20 minutes. My mineral broth had gone completely cold. I did not care even slightly. Back at the bureau, there is a long-running debate among my colleagues about whether humans are remarkable or simply lucky. Whether the things we observe are genuine courage or just a species that has not yet learned to properly calculate risk. I have a different theory. I think humans learned something a very long time ago that most advanced civilizations have since buried under procedure, protocol, and the comfortable distance of observation. They learned that sometimes, the right thing to do is just pull the trigger. And sometimes, the right thing to do is just take the parsnip. And the most extraordinary part? They do both without needing to understand why. I filed my report that evening. 18 pages. Full resolution footage. Complete audio transcript. I titled it, Behavioral Study, Harrow Woods, Unprompted Cross-Species Cooperation, Specimen Reference, Barro Finn and Subject Morda. My supervisor read it, flagged it routine, and moved on. I moved it back to my personal archive. Some things are too good to be filed under routine. Friends, if you are enjoying our videos and want to watch new and exciting sci-fi and HFY stories every day, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to turn on the bell icon so you never miss any of our latest uploads. Like the video and share it with your friends as well, so our community can continue to grow and bring you even more amazing content.